Judges chapter 6 starts out by telling us that the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and he delivered them into the hand of Midian for 7 years. When the Israelites planted their crops, their lands were invaded and ravaged not only by the Midianites, but also by the Amalekites and other people of the east. The Bible said they came up against them like locusts, meaning there were many. The people of Israel had no sustenance left, not even sheep, nor oxen, nor donkeys. They were so impoverished they cried out to the Lord. When they cried out, God sent them a prophet who told them, "This is what the Lord says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. I delivered you out of the hands of Egypt and all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am the Lord your God. You must not fear the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But you did not obey me." The angel of the Lord then came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash, the father of Gideon. On this day, Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to hide it from the Midianites. The angel appeared to him and said, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." Gideon was not amused by what the angel said. His response was,
If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are the miracles that our forefathers spoke of, even when he delivered us out of Egypt? He has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the enemy.
The Bible said the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Am I not sending you?" Gideon challenged God because he never thought he could do it, considering the fact that his clan was the weakest in Manasseh, and more so he was the youngest of his father's house. God reaffirmed Gideon that he will surely be with him, and with his help he, Gideon, will strike down the Midianites as one man. Gideon asked for a sign. He prepared a meal and presented it as an offering to the Lord. The Lord then consumed the offering by fire, a sign that he accepted the offering and that he was coming into agreement with his servant. When the angel vanished, it was then Gideon realized that he was speaking with an angel face to face. That same night, God told Gideon to destroy the altar named Baal, which belonged to his father, and that he should build a proper altar unto the Lord and offer his sacrifice on it. Because Gideon was afraid of his father's household and the men of the city, he did what God told him to do at night and brought 10 of his servants with him. In the morning, when the men of the city found out what happened, they became angry and immediately carried out an investigation. When they discovered that Gideon was the culprit, they wanted to take his life. But Joash, Gideon's father, told them, if Baal is God, he will handle the matter. The enemy was again approaching. All the Midianites, Amalekites, and the people of the east came together, and crossing the Jordan, they camped in the valley of Jezreel. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, who blew the ram's horn and gathered the army. Gideon, still doubting, said to God,
If you're going to save Israel by my hand, as you said, I'm placing a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all around it is dry, then I will know that you are going to save Israel by my hand, as you said.
God answered him. The next morning he wrung out a bucket full of water from the fleece, and around it was dry as he requested. Gideon, still doubting, said,
God, please don't be angry with me. One last thing. This time, let the fleece be dry, and around it be covered with dew.
Again, God answered. In the morning, Gideon gathered his 32,000 men by the spring of Harod, which was south of the enemy, the Midian. God told him, You have too many men for me to deliver the Midians in their hands. Israel would take the credit away from me, saying, My own hand has delivered me. So God told Gideon to tell the troops, "Whoever is fearful, let him return home." 2/3 of them went back. That's a total of 22,000. So Gideon was now left with 10,000 men. God said, "The troops are still too many. This is what you will do. Take them down to the river, and I will do the sifting myself. If I say this one shall go, he shall go. If I say this one shall not go, he will not go." So the men who licked the water with their tongues were chosen to go with Gideon, and the ones who knelt down to drink were sent home. God then told him, "I will use these 300 men to deliver the Midianites in your hand." God was sending Gideon with 300 men to fight against an army of 135,000 men. That same night, God said to Gideon, "Get up, attack the camp, for I have delivered them in your hand. But if you are afraid to attack, go down to their camp with your servant Purah, and you will hear what they are saying. Afterward, your hand will be strengthened to attack the camp." So both of them went down to the outpost of the camp. The Bible said the people present were like a swarm of locusts, and their camels like the sand of the seashore. They could not be numbered. Gideon was just in time to hear a man telling his friend about a dream he had. He said he dreamt that a loaf of barley bread came tumbling down into the Midian camp, and it struck the tent so hard that the tent collapsed. The friend replied after listening to the dream, "This is nothing less than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite. God has delivered Midian and the whole camp into his hand." When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he immediately worshipped God, and then went back to the other men and told them that God has indeed given the Midianites in their hands. Gideon divided the men into 3 groups and gave each man a ram's horn and an empty jar with a torch in it, then told them to surround the different parts of the camp. The instruction was, when they hear Gideon and the men in his group blow their horns and say, "For the Lord and for Gideon," they were to do the same thing. At the beginning of the middle watch, just after the guards were changing their shifts, that's between 12 midnight and 4 a.m., Gideon and his men blew their horns and broke the jar that was hiding the torches. They shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" The Lord set the men in the camp against each other with the sword, and the army fled away. The army did not escape because Gideon called forth the men from the various tribes, plus others from the hill country, and conquered them all. And that was how God fought for his people and gave them the victory over their enemies.